Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rabbi Jenny Greenspan for Congregation Beth-El here in Indianapolis. And I am joining you for this morning's Shabbat morning Torah Talk, this week on Parashat Shmot, or the first Torah portion of the book of Exodus, which is also called the book Shmot, the Sefer Shmot. As we will be starting in just a moment after quite an interesting week. So I'll say Shabbat Shalom and welcome. Good morning to, so far I see Shabbat Shalom to Jim Roth and to Michael Kahn, to Ellen Hamburger. So good to see you each week. Shabbat Shalom, welcome. As usual, if you would like to take a look at the Torah portion, though I'm not going to end up focusing on as many verses this morning as usual, you are welcome to go over to the bez613.org, select that virtual Shabbat resources menu, and scroll on down to the Torah Talk resources for Etz Chaim. There's a lot jammed into this week's Torah portion. It would already be difficult to figure out where to focus in any week, and we've had an unusual one. So you're welcome to follow along from there if you would like to take a look or just to read through the Torah portion. There's probably more narrative in this one Torah portion than many Torah portions have as far as the big highlight moments, covering these first 5 chapters of the book of Exodus. The only verse I'm going to really spend time focusing on specifically today will be on page 330, but I definitely recommend reading through the whole portion when you've got a chance, maybe with your Shabbat afternoon time later on today. But a good morning and Shabbat Shalom to Phyllis Luger, to Cheryl Toof, and to Cindy Harp. So good to see you all. Good morning and Shabbat Shalom. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. This week's Torah portion, as I mentioned, is the opening of the book of Exodus. It covers the birth of Moses. Shabbat Shalom to Miles Siegel and probably Amanda too. Shabbat Shalom to both of you. So we have the opening of the book of Exodus. We have the birth of, we start with a king who has forgotten Joseph, a king who starts to become fearful of what the people that he overrules can do, and so he ends up enslaving the Israelites and makes an evil decree to kill all of the baby boys born to the Hebrews or to the Israelites. We see moments of resistance from many, actually women. Somewhat ironic that the Pharaoh wants to kill the baby boys when it is in fact women who save the day in those first couple of chapters of Exodus. Between the midwives who refuse to kill the baby boys, between Miriam and Yocheved, Moses' sister and mother, who find a way to hide him for a few months and then get him into the Nile, into a basket that is called in Hebrew by the same word as the ark, which saved Noah. An interesting tie of 2 times where a single vessel is what saves someone from a water death. So we have Miriam and Yocheved rescuing Moses in this way. We have Pharaoh's daughter and her handmaidens who all see this baby and rescue him. And then we see very little of Moses's childhood. We see his early young adulthood, where he realizes his own allyship with the people of his birth, with the Israelites. He strikes down an Egyptian taskmaster who had been beating an Israelite, and then flees the country and marries the priests of Midian's daughter, so it's Zipporah, and now is out as a shepherd of his father-in-law's flock. And as he is out and about, he sees a burning bush that is not consumed. This is a somewhat famous story. He sees this fire burning and sees that the bush is not consumed. There's something poetic in recognizing that fire, a destructive thing, can also be noticed and stopped. And Moses stops to take a look, and then he and God end up having a conversation. And God tells Moses, this man who's of 2 worlds in Egypt, he's both an Israelite and raised in the royal castle. He's of 2 worlds in Egypt. He is out of either of those worlds while he is in Midian. He feels truly a stranger in a strange land and names his son with that feeling. And God says that he's going to be the one who will go and save the Israelites, rescue them all from Egypt, bring them to freedom, that he is going to be the one to lead that charge. And Moses feels helpless to do so. Moses says, I am not the one, and what will they think of me? Why will they believe me? And who will they think you are that you have told me? So that is where I want to take us. We're looking at chapter 3, verse 13. If you're following along in Etz Chaim, we are on page 330. We'll actually back up to 13 to give a context. So page 329 if you are following along in Etz Chaim, or whether PDF or a physical copy of the book. And if you are using a different edition of the Chumash, I am in Exodus chapter 3, verse 13. Moses says to God, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me, and they ask you, what is that God's name? What should I say to them? And so this morning, I want to focus on how God identifies God's self to this people in pain, and this people in crisis, and to this people who are not sure what or how to move forward, what to do or how to move forward, being led by someone who also feels that he doesn't know what to do to move forward. We see God said to Moses, Ehyeh asher ehyeh. The JPS even declines to really translate it. Vayomer Elohim el Moshe, Ehyeh asher ehyeh, Vayomer ko tomar livnei Yisrael, Ehyeh shlachani aleichem. God continued, thus you shall say to the Israelites, Ehyeh sent me to you. So it is interesting that we have Elohim as the speaker here. Elohim is the less of a name for God and more the word that simply means God in Israel. And here we have God identifying God's self as Ehyeh asher ehyeh. We're used to the name for God being Adonai, but really spelled Yud-He Vav-He. And one of the teachings that I once heard about that name is that it is the combination of the verb to be in all three different simple terms. So haya means was, hoveh means is, yihiyeh means will be in the third person. And the name we often see for God is the combination of all of them. We see the yud, the he, a vav, and another hey. We combine God's name all together into this temporal, in and out of all time, which has led for many to attach to the more Aristotelian belief about God, as God is simply a given. God exists outside of time and space, and God is simply always. Oh, God was, is, and will be, and is a simple, single, perfect entity outside of time and space. And yet here, when God is first asked to identify God's self by name, God doesn't use that name right there. God instead says Ehyeh, which is the future tense or the present perfect, the ongoing tense, and with an aleph at the beginning means the first person, the I form. So some of translations will say, I will be that I will be. Some will say, I am that I am. Some will say, I will cause what I will cause. All of it is movement in time. So what do we do with the concept of God who identifies God's self as a movement in time rather than simply a stationary fact, as Rabbi Dennis said, as a factor, not a fact. This God is in moving forward in movement. We look at some of the commentaries on what we do with this kind of movement and this repetition. Ehyeh asher ehyeh, I will be what I will be. Ramban, or Rabbi Moses ben Nachman, who lived in the mid-13th century, said that the repetition of Ehyeh refers to, I will be with you during this troubling time. Right now, you Israelites who are suffering from slavery, or right now for many of us, you Americans who are reeling from a feeling of attack on democracy and on freedom and on our process. I will be with you right now in this troubling time. And I will be with you in the next time. Ramban sees a reality of human life that there will always be troubling times, and the version of God that always is will be there every time, each time. That's Ramban's offering. Shemot Rabbah, the midrashic text from around the same time as the Talmud, in very early commentary, somewhere around the 1200 CE, says that God goes by many names, and that in this particular instance, we needed the one that said move forward. We needed the one that says, I am with you. Sometimes we use El Shaddai, God is a judge and is right there. We use the Tsevaot, the rock, the host, the leader, the ruler. And here we have a God that's just saying, I will be what I will be. I'll be here. And I think in this particular moment, the movement forward that I see in the verse, in the wording, in God's choices and how God identifies themselves, is also attached specifically for where Moses is feeling. Moses is asking God how to identify God to the Israelites, but I think God answers for Moses himself. Moses is someone who becomes a leader but does not think he has the tools to do it. Moses feels helpless to address everything that is going on and what it is he's supposed to do. He even says, I cannot speak. He says, I am slow of words and tongue. He has often interpreted to be some kind of speech impediment. And God says, I'll be here. I will be with you, and I am movement. God does not use the Adonai Yud He Vav He form of God's name to say that God is outside and perfect. God uses the movement form of his name, of God's name. The present imperfect, for the grammar nerds, the ongoing, the action, the responsive. It says we can move forward. God is, rather than a stable, static, perfect entity, God is the ongoing, perfecting process. It says that Moses can do that too. In this moment, I think we also need that reminder that God is not in the moment of shock, of tragedy, of anger, of frustration. God is, in fact, in what we do next and how we move forward. So Moses may have felt helpless to move forward, and God gives Moses the tools he needs. He gives him Aaron as a speaker. He gives him Aaron as someone to lean on. And I think as we figure out how we want to move forward into whatever is next in our own lives, we too can find the tools. We can take the inspiration from what God does for Moses to figure out what tools we need to strengthen ourselves. And then we partner with Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. We partner with the God that is forever moving forward. We partner with God who is a perfecting process, and we move forward towards something even better. We continue to move forward in our lives and in the next several chapters. We know the next few parshiot of the book of Exodus still show much struggle. There is still work ahead for Moses and for the Israelites, just as there is still work ahead for all of us at all points in our lives, especially right now. And yet we will know, as how Nachmanides put it and how Ramban put it, he goes by a few names, I will be with you. God will be with us now in the struggles now and in the struggles ahead. God is forever moving forward and perfecting with us. So say Shabbat Shalom. May the week ahead bring us closer to one another and closer to whatever is ahead. And may we partner with one another and with God in perfecting this world as we continue to move forward in time. So Shabbat Shalom, and thanks for joining me, to Jody Zucker, to Peter Mayer, so many with us today. Shabbat Shalom to Renee Fountain, Julia Whitehead. Shabbat Shalom, Marty Lip, and to Ryan Dorman, to Cindy Harp again. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you all so much for joining me. Yes, Brian, in modern Hebrew, Ehyeh is only seen as I will be, is simply a future tense. But in the biblical, it carries a few different connotations of how it moves forward. May we all move forward together, knowing that God will be with us now and will be with us as we continue moving forward. God also on the movement with us. Shabbat Shalom, and I hope you join us at 10 o'clock for our live streamed morning service in our chapel. I think this morning you'll see which one is marking as live, and we will continue to see you as we continue to move forward into 2021. Shabbat Shalom.